There's a graph that every personal finance channel has shown you. The one where a small amount of money turns into a mountain of wealth over 30 or 40 years. That beautiful, sweeping curve that starts flat and then rockets upward. You've seen it 100 times, and every time the message is the same. Just start, stay consistent, and let compounding do the work. But nobody ever asks the obvious question. If that graph is real, if compounding is this unstoppable force, then why are most people who've been investing for years still broke? Not because they didn't start, not because they weren't patient, but because there's something about that graph that nobody explains. The curve doesn't bend for everyone. Compounding has a minimum, and most people are below it. You've probably heard the famous thought experiment. A penny doubled every day for 30 days turns into over $5 million. It's the go-to example every financial educator reaches for when they want to explain compound growth. And it's technically correct, but it's also deeply misleading because it smuggles in an assumption that nobody questions. A 100% daily return. That's not a rate of return. That's a fantasy. In the real world, broad market index funds return roughly 7 to 10% annually. After inflation, you're looking at maybe 6 or 7. That's not a penny doubling every day. That's a penny growing by a fraction of a cent. And here's the thing. At low dollar amounts, that fraction of a fraction is functionally invisible. If you invest $100 and earn 8% in a great year, you've made $8. $8. That's not life-changing. That's not even lunch-changing. But we keep telling people it doesn't matter how much you start with, just start. And while that's well-intentioned, it papers over a critical truth. Compounding only feels like compounding after you cross a certain threshold. Below it, you're just saving, slowly, linearly, almost painfully. The curve is flat. The graph is boring. And for most people, that's where they live their entire financial lives, on the flat part of the curve, wondering why the magic never kicked in. And the cruelest part? They blame themselves. They think they picked the wrong fund, or started too late, or aren't savvy enough. But the fund was fine. The timing was fine. The problem was never strategy. The problem was scale. So what is this threshold? It's not one exact number. It shifts based on your rate of return and your time horizon. But the principle is universal. Compounding becomes meaningful only when your base is large enough for the returns to generate returns of their own that you can actually feel. Let me make this concrete. Say you've saved $5,000 and earned 8%. That's $400 in year one. Fine. But $400 doesn't really compound into much. It earns you maybe $32 the next year. Now, say you've saved $100,000. That same 8% gives you $8,000, and that $8,000 earns $640 the year after. Now we're moving. Now the snowball is actually picking up snow. Charlie Munger once said that the first $100,000 is the hardest, and he didn't mean it emotionally, although it is. He meant it mathematically. Below $100,000, you are the engine. Your savings rate, your income, your hustle, that's what moves the needle. The market is barely a supporting actor. Above $100,000, something shifts. The money starts doing a meaningful share of the work. You wake up some mornings and your portfolio gained more overnight than you earned at your job that day. That's the threshold. That's when compounding goes from a textbook idea to something you can feel in your actual life. And the uncomfortable truth is that most people, not because they're lazy, not because they're irresponsible, most people never reach it. Let me put a number on why. According to the Federal Reserve's survey of consumer finances, the median retirement savings for an American household between 55 and 64 years old is around $185,000. That means half of all households approaching retirement have less than that, and many of them only recently crossed the $100,000 mark, if they crossed it at all. They spent decades investing, but spent most of that time on the flat part of the curve. By the time the math starts to get interesting, they're already withdrawing. And this is where the conversation gets honest, because the standard financial advice, cut the lattes, cancel the subscriptions, automate your savings, operates on the assumption that the gap between where you are and where compounding kicks in is closable through frugality. For some people it is. For a lot of people, it isn't. If you earn $35,000 a year and your rent is $1,200 a month, you don't have a spending problem. You have an income problem. You could optimize your grocery budget down to the cent and still not have enough margin to build the kind of base that compounding requires. And this is what makes the just invest early advice so frustrating for so many people, because it skips the hardest part. It's like telling someone to enjoy the view from the summit without mentioning the vertical cliff face they have to scale first. The first $100,000 isn't a milestone you cruise past, it's a wall. And for people with student debt, or medical bills, or kids, or the simple reality of living in an expensive world on a modest income, it can feel permanent. There's also a psychological cost that doesn't get enough attention. When you invest $200 a month for 2 years and your balance is $5,100 and $4,800 of that is just money you deposited, the growth feels almost insulting. $300 of gains in 2 years. Meanwhile, your social media feed is full of people talking about how compounding built their wealth. It makes you feel like you're doing something wrong. You're not. The math just isn't in your favor yet. Now, I'm not saying this to be discouraging. I'm saying it because pretending the wall doesn't exist is worse. Every financial influencer showing you the compound interest chart starting at year 1 and ending at year 30 is showing you the destination. They're not showing you the 10 years of barely visible progress that make most people quit. And quitting or never starting is the real cost of the compounding minimum. Not that people can't do math, but that the math, done honestly, can be demoralizing. So people either don't start or they start and stop because the early results feel pointless. Now, before I get into what you can actually do about this, if you're watching this far in, you're clearly the kind of person who thinks deeper about money than most people do. That matters. And if you want more videos that go beyond the surface level advice, take 1 second and hit subscribe. Most of our viewers aren't subscribed yet, and it genuinely helps keep making stuff like this. All right, let's get into the solution. So if the first $100,000 is the wall, how do you get over it? The answer isn't sexy, but it's real, and it has 3 parts. First, income is the lever, not budgeting. Below the compounding threshold, every extra dollar you earn matters more than every dollar you save. This isn't about hustle culture or grinding yourself into the ground. It's about recognizing where the highest impact effort goes. A raise, a side project that generates income, a skill that makes you more valuable in the market. These do more for your financial trajectory than switching to a cheaper phone plan. You can't optimize your way across a gap that wide. You have to earn your way across it. Second, protect the base at all costs. The biggest enemy of early-stage wealth isn't a bad stock pick. It's the emergency that empties your account, the car that breaks down, the medical bill, the job loss. This is why an emergency fund isn't just good advice, it's load-bearing infrastructure. It protects the base that you're building so that compounding has something to work with when you finally cross that line. Every time you drain your savings to zero and start over, you reset the clock on compounding. And each reset costs you years, not months. Third, and this one matters more than people realize, do not measure your progress by the compound interest chart. Those charts are designed to sell you on the end state. They show the hockey stick. They don't show the long, flat handle you have to hold on to for years. Instead, track your savings rate. Track your net worth in absolute terms. Celebrate the milestones, $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, $25,000. Not because compounding is doing much at those levels, but because every dollar you stack is closing the distance to the threshold where it will. Think of it this way. You're building a runway. The plane doesn't take off at the beginning of the runway. It takes off at the end. But every foot of pavement you lay down matters, because without the full runway, the plane never leaves the ground. Here's what I want you to take away from this. Compounding is real. It's powerful. It is genuinely one of the most important forces in building wealth over a lifetime. But it's not magic, and it's not fair. It rewards the people who already have the most. The bigger your base, the harder it works for you. The smaller your base, the more invisible it is. That doesn't mean you shouldn't invest with whatever you have. You absolutely should. But it means you should pair that investing with an aggressive, clear eyed effort to grow your income and protect your savings. Because that's what gets you to the threshold. That's what gets you off the flat part of the curve. Not time alone, not patience alone, but the combination of time, patience, and a base large enough for the math to matter. The compounding minimum is real. And knowing it exists isn't pessimism. It's the most useful piece of financial information most people never hear. Because once you know the wall is there, you can stop wondering why the magic hasn't started and start building the ladder to get over it. If this changed how you think about compounding or money in general, subscribe to this channel. We break down the ideas that personal finance gurus oversimplify so you can make smarter decisions with the full picture, not just the highlight reel. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and I'll see you in the next one.